Chapter 6, 140. Fang Yuan versus Giant Sun's Will, 1/2. Translator, Chibi General Editor, Chibi General. I could escape death all thanks to you, fairy. Fang Yuan squinted, his eyes shining with cold light. He loosened his joints, rubbing his palms as his newly born bones creaked. His battle intent surged again. If you want to repay me, return Water Pavilion to Spirit Affinity House. Mo Yao's Will sighed. Quickly battle. Ha ha ha, okay. Fang Yuan howled, jumping up. He had turned into six-armed heavenly zombie king form. It had great physical strength. With green eyes and fangs, he looked extremely vicious and ruthless. The water armor shrunk into a lump before turning into a helmet, protecting his head. This way, he was no longer afraid of Giant Sun's Will's mental attack. Without any worries left, Fang Yuan took huge steps forward, raising his fists and punching at Giant Sun's Will. Swoosh! The expected impact did not occur. Instead, there was a light sound. Giant Sun's Will was very experienced. He did not fight with Fang Yuan directly. At the crucial moment, the sword turned into a golden ribbon and coiled around Fang Yuan's wrist lightly, before flying away like a flash of light. Fang Yuan's hammer-like fist was cut apart around the wrist and fell on the ground. Even with the defense of Fang Yuan's six-armed heavenly zombie king, it could not match Giant Sun's Will's sharpness. Fang Yuan rolled away and quickly picked up his hand. The injury on his arm was oozing with green blood slowly. Fang Yuan paid attention to Giant Sun's Will while pressing the fist back onto the wound on his arm. The flesh on the wound quickly mended and healed. Even the bones started to join together. This was the strong regenerative ability of six-armed heavenly zombie king. But why would Giant Sun's Will give Fang Yuan time to recover? The will turned into a sword resembling a rainbow and charged at Fang Yuan again. Fang Yuan squinted. He pushed with his legs as his body shot into the sky. The sword rainbow followed closely behind him, chasing relentlessly. Fang Yuan activated 4 Eagle Rise Gu at the same time, but the sword rainbow was faster as their distance was pulled closer. Fang Yuan activated Windflower Gu again. He had already lost track of which Windflower Gu this was. All in all, he had already expended a lot of them. Windflower Gu allowed Fang Yuan to change directions rapidly, but the sword rainbow of will was even more agile. Not only did their distance not become larger, the rainbow made use of this chance to catch up to Fang Yuan. At once, the two sides fought intensely in the air, exchanging blows. The sword rainbow of will drew a golden arc in the air, circling around Fang Yuan and attacking from time to time. Fang Yuan was completely at a disadvantage. Six-armed heavenly zombie king's strong defense was extremely weak when matched against the sword rainbow of will. Flesh kept falling from the sky. These were all cut off from Fang Yuan's body by the sword rainbow of will. Thankfully, after activating six-armed heavenly zombie king, Fang Yuan lost his sense of pain. Together with Water Pavilion as a helmet, Giant Sun's Will did not manage to succeed in attacking Fang Yuan's mind. You're not making any progress. Seeing that Fang Yuan was not taking back the lead, in fact he was taking more of a beating and finding fewer and fewer chances to retaliate, Mo Yao's Will was getting anxious. Easy for you to say, Fang Yuan snorted, his gaze becoming more ruthless. Giant Sun's Will was different from ordinary enemies. He hardly had any mass and was extremely quick, even when turning. Fang Yuan's Flying Master attainment was nothing compared to it. Giant Sun's Will did not have a fixed form. It could turn into a sword rainbow to cut, an axe to chop, a rain of needles for a wide-range attack, or even a hammer for a strong blow. The most troublesome thing was that he could split and form at will. Suddenly, he could split into 2 or 3 sword rainbows and do a pincer attack, distracting Fang Yuan. At times, he could turn into 1 hammer and 1 sword. The hammer would strike at Fang Yuan's defense while the sword would shoot like lightning. All sorts of combinations were used flexibly, with absolutely no errors. One could say he fully displayed the advantages and abilities of a will in battle. Meanwhile, Fang Yuan had been reborn and walked on the strength and enslavement paths. He was skilled at fighting head-on, attacking fists with fists, or using numbers to suppress the enemy. But meeting this kind of enemy was something he had no methods to deal with. He was at a disadvantage, taking hits passively. That was very natural. In the sky, Fang Yuan's green-black figure clashed with Giant Sun's Will's golden rainbow, forming a large battle arena. Great numbers of goo worms were still flying around. Their instincts were telling them to give way to Fang Yuan and Giant Sun's will, while avoiding the attacks of the formless hands. Even though so many goo worms flew out, there are still countless goo worm groups left here. I cannot begin to imagine how many immortal goo were used to form 88 true Yang building. Ye Luisang raised his head and sighed. The injuries on his body had mostly healed. At the crucial moment, his status of being the leader of a super tribe worked. Ye Luisang obtained the help of other goo masters. There are not many formless hands left, although we have lost many goo worms. There are so many goo worms here, we can capture them now and regain our battle strength, some goo masters suggested. This suggestion was quickly supported by the other goo masters. We need to work together sincerely. We need to be fast. The wind veil of assimilation is getting thicker. It is spreading and the space in here will continue to shrink. He Lulan looked at the unconscious Tai Bai Yunsheng walking over. The wind veil of assimilation is not something us mortals can deal with. To escape with our lives, we need Ancestor Giant Sun's strength. Everyone was silent. Above them, in the air, Fang Yuan and Giant Sun's will were engaging in fierce combat. At times, furious growls and shouting could be heard. Be it Fang Yuan or Giant Sun's will's terrifying battle strength. Everyone was scared. They subconsciously avoided those two and did not want to interfere in the battle of these two top experts. But He Lulan's words were extremely true. Relying on the mortal goo that they subdue, no matter how many they have, they cannot break the wind veil of assimilation. He Lulan asked again, "Don't worry, how can this scoundrel be Ancestor Giant Sun's match? Can't you see that Ancestor is having the upper hand all along?" Everyone's eyes were shining. The battle situation was very visible in the sky. Everyone could clearly tell what was happening. He Lulan changed the direction of the conversation. Although Ancestor has the upper hand, he cannot turn the advantage into victory. The root of the problem is that Ancestor's immortal essence has been completely taken by that scoundrel. Ancestor has over a dozen immortal goo, but he cannot use any of them. Everyone nodded. They agreed with He Lulan's analysis. Ye Luisang asked, "Then what do we do next?" He Lulan laughed heartily, displaying Tai Bai Yunsheng in his hands. "I have captured this old thief. He is that guy's senior brother. They share a tight bond. Our ability is limited. We can only try to help old Ancestor. My suggestion is still the same. We should capture goo worms first to increase our strength. In order to cooperate well, we should report all of the goo worms that we have now. I will start." Goo masters were normally very secretive about the goo worms that they owned. This was important information. Once it was exposed, others could use it against them, and they might lose their lives. However, this was a special circumstance where their lives were about to be lost. Thus, everyone could only do this to increase the hopes of their survival. He Lulan was a natural leader and had a fierce reputation. As he took the lead to expose his own goo worms, the remaining goo masters followed along, and He Lulan was able to recruit these people into his force once again. He Lulan had great ambitions. He wanted to ascend to immortal and needed a strength path immortal goo for it. Thus he needed to rely on Giant Sun's will. These people were the pawns that he needed to fulfill his ambition. In the sky, the battle was already at its climax. "I've caught you!" Fang Yuan howled, pouncing down as his 6 arms that were tougher than steel grabbed the sword made of Giant Sun's will at lightning speed. But Giant Sun's will instantly split apart. Fang Yuan's long-awaited counterattack only destroyed a bit of his thoughts. "Damn it!" Fang Yuan cursed. Giant Sun's will could split and gather together. It was agile beyond belief. Fang Yuan did not have methods to deal with him. Thus, most of the time, he could only be a punching bag without any feasible counterattacks. He did not manage to make any progress. Sigh. If there is no other choice, we can only undergo a drawn-out battle. Mo Yao's will said, Giant Sun's will has no source of energy. During the battle, he needs to think that will accelerate the collision of his thoughts and thus the expenditure of them. Fang Yuan was concentrating on the fight while denying Mo Yao's suggestion. We cannot afford to drag this on. Don't forget six-arm Heavenly Zombie King's weakness. It can only be used for 30 minutes. Once that time passes, the backlash of the killer move would make me a zombie. If I completely turn into six-arm Heavenly Zombie King form, the entire body would be zombified, and both my apertures, including my immortal aperture, would lose all life force. My cultivation will be cut off from advancing further. Mo Yao retorted, "You underestimate yourself. Don't forget that you are a strength path Gu immortal. The essence of your life has undergone a qualitative change. Thus, the time that you can use the killer move has also been extended. It is far from 30 minutes. My rough estimate is that you have about an hour in length. Even so, we cannot delay this. Don't forget that the wind veil of assimilation is getting thicker, shrinking the space in here. My methods cannot counter the special will. Does your water pavilion have any methods?" Fang Yuan asked. Mo Yao heaved a long sigh. Although Water Pavilion is a rank 7 immortal Gu house, it is not skilled at attacking, but rather its ability lies in concealment and movement. Most importantly, my main body only left behind 20 or so beads of red date immortal essence. After sustaining the immortal Gu house's operations over the years, there are only 5 left. If you want to use Water Pavilion to turn this around, you should dispel this thought. Watch out! Mo Yao suddenly alerted, but it was too late. Giant Sun's will feigned an attack and attracted most of Fang Yuan's attention, but it suddenly made a turn and got behind him, attacking brutally. Fang Yuan vomited out a mouthful of green zombie blood. His 8 eagle wings were smashed to bits, and his spine was completely shattered. His back was caved in, and his chest was caving out of his body. The intense force caused him to descend rapidly. Fang Yuan quickly mobilized his Gu worm, attempting to fly into the sky. But why would Giant Sun's will give him this chance? It would beat the dog while it was down. The golden rainbow coiled around Fang Yuan as it attacked. Fang Yuan raised his 8 arms to cover his whole body while curling up and was barely able to protect himself. Giant Sun's will changed shape freely, slashing, cutting, slamming, piercing. All sorts of attacks caused Fang Yuan's 8 arms to be destroyed. The 6-arm Heavenly Zombie King's body was tattered, as there were many injuries on him from the front to back. Fortunately, Fang Yuan had turned into 6-arm Heavenly Zombie King form. Otherwise, with his human body, he would have already had a tragic death. Fighting with Giant Sun's will gave Fang Yuan great pressure. Only by using 6-arm Heavenly Zombie King non-stop could he barely keep up.